Hi, Michael. Hi, Mahtab. I am so excited to be talking to you both today. So you are both the founders of Open Doors Initiative, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But first, I'd just like to have you both introduce yourselves.
Thanks for having us, Sarah. My name is Mahtab, and as you mentioned, one of the co-founders for Open Doors with Michael, and we've known each other for quite a while now, since high school. And just a bit about myself on the academic side. I've just recently finished my Bachelor's of Science at the University of British Columbia, and currently I'm working and working with Open Doors as well. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Great. No, thank you for being here.
Yeah, so sorry, thanks for inviting us on again. I'm Michael. Hopefully you guys remember me from the last interview we had. This interview, hopefully we discuss more about the work that Mahtab and I have done through Open Doors. And obviously one of the catalysts for Open Doors was partly my experiences growing up with dyslexia, being a dyslexic person. So that's why we wanted to kind of share, Sarah wanted to share from our discussions both sides of what we've done and my own personal experiences as an individual dealing with this. So I'm really excited for not just one, but a two-part segment here. So it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys. I mean, I'm so excited to talk about this, and I know you're both based in Canada, so you met in high school. I didn't know that. That's great. So you're both based in Canada. So tell me a little bit about Open Doors Initiative.
Mahtab, I'll let you take this one.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So Open Doors Initiative is, pardon me, an idea that originally I think Michael had an inspiration for based on this other program that's similar to what we're doing here called Make the Cut, I believe. And what they do there is they provide support to students, high school students who have learning disabilities, and they acquaint them to different resources in Ottawa that relate to post-secondary. So they kind of introduce them to different universities, the resources they have to offer. They give tips on how students can succeed. And I remember Michael calling me one day after volunteering for this program, and he mentioned that this would be a great idea to start here in BC or in Vancouver because, to our knowledge, there wasn't really something like that existed. So, listening to this over the phone, like even at the time, I did not know much about learning disabilities and uh, you know things like dyslexia or ADHD or any learning disability for that matter. But um, the fact that he was really interested in it, I wanted to support him, and also I felt that I felt that there could be a personal connection I could make with this organization as well in terms of um, the South Asian community to which I belong, where there's very little knowledge about what learning disabilities are, and it's heavily stigmatized. Um, so that's where I was kind of inspired to help out with this whole cause. And our initial kind of focus was to kind of do the same thing, which was to support students in high school who were wanting to go into post-secondary, whether that's college, university, or any other program, and seeing what we can do to kind of bridge that gap for them. Because even for any student, that transition from finishing high school to entering any university or college is a difficult one, and obviously that can be exasperated if you don't have the proper resources to support your education and the way you best learn. So that was kind of the whole the main aim of the organization when we first began, and it still continues on today. We've branched into different activities, different ways of providing support over the years, but that continues to be our main focus.
Okay. Well, I mean, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, when I first heard about you both, it was through Instagram, and I saw everything that you're doing, and I think it's incredible. And I mean, you are making a difference, definitely. So
Thank you.
Congratulations to you both, really.
Just another thing to add on, Mahtab talked about how there were branches off of kind of things that we've discovered since we were since 2017. So I think that would be our second year, right, Mahtab? And like we at first we thought, oh, maybe if we just do a copy and paste thing of what Make the Cut does, but then we realized how many intersectional factors go on with dyslexia and everything like that, that maybe a copy and paste solution is ironic because it's a copy and paste solution doesn't work for everyone, just like people's learning types, like honoring people's learning types. And that's why I've always said that, like, Mahtab through high school and through university has always been somebody like me, like my best advocate in a way, like having that support group, having that support person, and just the willingness to listen to people's experiences is so important, right? Like Mahtab, he's pretty clear about how he doesn't have a learning disability, or he's not neurodiverse, but he's still willing to do all of this and experience and listen to these stories, which is important for people that might not have these same experiences as other people do, right? Whether we're talking about dyslexia or other things, which is so important, which is why we've tried to facilitate discussions, teach people, or bring people in that know more than us, right? About this subject, which Mahtab has honestly been amazing with when it comes to understanding. It might not be something that he has, but when it comes to actually trying to help people, it's not more so like, oh, these are the solutions that we've found. It's more so like, especially with me, he's listened to like my experiences a lot through open doors and everything like that, but he's been able to help. For example, when it comes to like ideas and stuff, I would throw out so many ideas and Mahtab would be able to funnel it down, right? So advocacy and the growth of this has really been important, and that's why we wanted to really reach out and say that, you know, awareness and advocacy when it comes to things like neurodiversity, dyslexia, ADHD, that's something that doesn't have to be just for people, a battle just for people like you and I, Sarah. Like, it could be a battle for everyone to honor everyone's learning type, whether you see it or not.
Yeah, I mean, you guys complement each other. Not everyone that's in like the learning difficulties and advocating for people with learning difficulties has to actually have it, you know? So I feel like it's good to kind of have someone who does know the experience and someone else who's kind of like outside of the box and sees how it affects someone who has the learning difficulty. So it's good, like you're working together. That's great. But can you tell me what are some of the things you focus on in your like in Open Doors initiative? Like, I know you guys have a basketball team, and that's very encouraging for kids. Like, I know personally for me, when I was younger, having sports on the side next to education, it really helped me to kind of let out my anger when it came to like learning things and studying. Like, because when you have a learning difficulty, I feel like everyone kind of wants you to focus completely on studying, but you kind of need to let out that energy somewhere else. So is that why you came up with the basketball?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons for sure. And a lot of earlier on when we first began the initiative, we did this famous like dyslexic person of the day kind of post, and every day would be you know, all these like famous people who I had no idea, like a lot of people had no idea that they actually had a learning disability, but they excelled in their field. And so we began to notice that a lot of people who who we posted were athletes, and we thought, you know, like you just mentioned, it's an excellent mechanism to kind of cope with what's going on with your life with regards to, you know, stressors and trying to find a way to release all those emotions, pent up emotions. So we thought this would be a good way to kind of make that connection. And we also saw that it would be a great opportunity to involve the community Fraser Academy, which is a school here in Vancouver that specializes in supporting students with learning disabilities. And so we also partnered up with Vancouver Basketball, which is another local organization here who does a lot of grassroots um, sort of basketball support for athletes. So it was a great opportunity for us to kind of partner up with everyone and allow us to make that connection to learning disabilities, but also allow for students to have fun, to also raise funds for a very good cause. Because ultimately, the aim of the tournament was to raise money for an outreach center that Fraser Academy was going to open, and this outreach center would provide support to students as an after-school program for those that can't afford, like special needs education because it can be quite expensive. So uh, for before COVID hit, it was one of our, I would say, our flagship events. Though it's something that we really enjoyed organizing and running, and we took a lot of pride in. And we just thought it would be perfect for this cause, something that's a little unique, but also relates well in terms of all the people, all these famous athletes that have learning disabilities, and it can for sure inspire students who are perhaps learning diverse and want to pursue a career in athletics or anything for that matter, and kind of channel inspiration from that event.
Do you think it helps? Like, I know it's more mental in terms of like being athletic and playing sports. It's kind of, for me, it's helped me mentally. So do you guys see results when you have basketball?
Sorry, results how? Like awareness or like academia?
I mean, it could be both. I mean, I guess educational wise, not really, but I mean mentally. Like, does it kind of help kids, express themselves easily or not be as frustrated as they were when they first came to you guys?
I feel like it's an outlet. Like we do the Hoop to Learn event as more of an awareness event. So we tried to say, like, people like Aja Wilson, who plays for the Las Vegas Aces, WNBA, she's dyslexic. Magic Johnson, who played for the Lakers, was dyslexic or is dyslexic. LeBron James has ADD, and Michael Jordan had ADHD. So that was, like Mahtab said, we took inspiration from that to say, oh, a lot of them are basketball players. Let's do a basketball tournament. And we wanted to promote like hands-on learning, honoring different people's learning types. So what's more hands-on than basketball, right? So then that's something that we did, and a lot of great discussions would come up about young kids coming up and asking questions about us, whether it came to like learning disabilities or something like that, or like people understanding where the money was going to and why this was so important. It was in our message, because as much as we would love to just have educational talks on dyslexia and ADHD, a lot of the age group that needs to hear it would probably not want to sit down, especially for people who are like at least me, who need to move to learn, right? So that's why we a lot of it did the Hoops to Learn tournament. And a lot of people, when they came back the next year and the previous year, they would talk about it. And I had this one girl who saw the stuff with the Hoop to Learn. She didn't participate in it, but her name, or she comes up to me, and she's like, you know what, Mike, I finally decided to go get tested for ADHD, and I am ADHD, and I am so relieved right now that I can say that I am ADHD, because now I know where to target it, right? So just awareness events like the Hoops to Learn tournament does bring awareness. Whether it could help kids out, I'm pretty sure. I used to be a competitive athlete, so I'm pretty sure any type of sport like that would help kind of channel people's focus and just kind of show more that learning is more than just a learning environment is more than just a classroom. It could be a court, it could be a kitchen, it could be a studio, it could be whatever you feel like is best. And that's what we want to kind of promote, is that cultivation of self, individual talent, instead of just trying to fit into this norm.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. Honestly, just knowing that you've kind of changed the life of someone, I think that's what we all kind of want at the end of the day, you know, like raising awareness. Of course, that's the most important thing. But like what you just said, the girl thought she had ADHD, and you guys really motivated her and gave her that push to kind of go get tested for it. And now, you know, she's now knowing how to kind of handle it and live with it. So it does make a change. I think it's good.
Mahtab, remember the letter that we got from Fraser Academy with the money that do you want to kind of explain that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as well. So
I don't want to ramble, so you're better. So yeah.
So at the end, when we donated the proceeds to Fraser Academy, they actually were able to help a specific student out who I believe one of their parents had unfortunately passed away, and they were going through a tough patch financially as well because of that. And the letter kind of was just, it was very heartfelt. They said that the funds that had all these, teams and parents at the event had donated had really helped them. I believe pay for a lot of their expenses for post-secondary, and they were just very thankful about what happened. And I think for me personally, like I know Mike probably felt the same as well, but it was that really put things into perspective on how important something like this can be, and that indeed we could be making a difference in someone's life by not only raising awareness but with monetary support as well. So for me, that was like, that kind of gave us more motivation as well to continue running an event like this, and making sure that we can we at least try to reach out to as many people as possible and try to get more students involved with this event, so that we can end up helping more students who are in need, and that it's never easy to lose a parent for anyone, but especially when you're at such a young age and you rely on someone else to provide support financially for your education. And that was just, it was an emotional part of the whole event, but we were really thankful for that person writing us a letter, and we hope they're doing well right now in whatever they're pursuing, and we hope events like this can continue helping students.
I mean, I don't know what to say, to be honest. That's incredible. Like you guys, you are very motivational. Like I'm very inspired by what you're doing, and I really hope that maybe later on in time I could kind of reach the same goals that you guys have currently reached, like through everything that you're doing. It's really motivational, and I really hope you just keep going. And I know COVID kind of paused everything, but you have a lot of people out there that are following you, and like it's just very inspiring what you guys are doing. So definitely keep it up.
Yeah, we want to thank you as well for like helping us, or just getting the message out there about what learning disabilities are and how people can get support, because the work you do as well is also really, really important. So and it's great that we can kind of talk about this together with other organizations and collab, because that was a big part of our event as well, is trying to get as many community leaders and businesses involved with not just sponsorships, but getting them recognized for all the hard work that they do as well. So I think that's a really important part about reaching a goal, is to work together as much as possible with other people, other organizations, to reach a common goal.
Yeah, like Mahtab pretty much just summed it up fully, right? Like we can't destigmatize notions around learning disabilities just by one group, right? Like we need everyone involved, and that's why it's really great that you reached out to us, right? Because it just makes our community a little smaller and stronger, right?
And I mean, I don't know, how many learning difficulties have you kind of dealt with? You guys maybe, like, do you have a specific type? Like, I don't know how to explain this, but for example, like me, I work with dyslexia. So you guys work with ADHD and you work with dyslexics. And is there any other types of learning difficulties you kind of dealt with throughout the 2 years?
We've had like, do you mean people that have come up to disclose it with us?
Yeah, like who have you kind of worked with before? Like,
So
what's the most common learning difficulty that you've worked with, basically?
there's like dyslexia, ADHD, but I'd also say that like what we say with like neurodiversity and everything like that, like honoring people's learning type is also like, for example, we've had a couple of people mention like mental health stuff to us. So like anxiety, depression, and how these same resources and strategies that are often given to people who are dyslexic and ADHD can help people with mental health problems like anxiety, who then probably find out that their anxiety is probably induced by something like ADHD or dyslexia that they never knew that they had, right? So that's why we want to promote these universal resources, which is so important for at least us to kind of vocalize that these resources aren't just here for people who are neurodiverse. They can help out a bunch of people because 1 in 5 Canadians aren't diagnosed. Like they have dyslexia, but 1 in 5 don't know that they have dyslexia, right? So that's the major thing, which a couple of stats, which is why we wanted to really push this forward. Another thing, a resource is people to person resource, right? Like back in Fraser Academy, we'd have these things called tutors. So like instead of doing a language course, you do Orton Gillingham, which is a strategy on or a certain type of learning strategy that people use for dyslexia. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we weren't able to do our Hoop to Learn tournament, but we did do something through the pandemic that wasn't aimed specifically towards learning diverse students because it was because you can't diagnose it and it's unseen. So we did a mentorship program of people at UBC to which is the University of British Columbia, and a couple of other universities too, of kids coming home to help these kids transition, whether they're learning diverse or not. We just wanted to make sure that, because one, we don't know and we can't necessarily ask them to disclose it unless they want to, but we do know that there were a lot of kids having a problem with that transition, especially during a pandemic. So that's why we tried to stay active as much as possible. So we're not just totally dependent on the Hoop to Learn tournament. We do have other things that we do too, like our mentorship program. We also have like summer projects that we do, like our comic book drive we're currently working on right now. So it's a lot of exciting stuff, and we're just happy that we can still, like, there are still people that need this help, right? Like, if that makes any sense. I don't know, am I missing anything, Mahtab?
No, I was gonna. I'm happy you mentioned the mentorship program with the resources, because we actually we had a few students help us work on a Riva, and now they helped us, along with all their mentorships, our mentors, create a resource. It's sort of like a handbook that talks about really smart and evidence-based study techniques that all students can use. So it doesn't matter really if you're learning diverse, or if you're not, if you're diagnosed or not, you can still make use of these resources. For example, spaced repetition, or using apps like Anki, or um, the memory palace technique if you're studying for a test that requires a lot of memorization. Um, all those things that any student can really use as an important tool because as you know, once you go into post-secondary, you actually have to start learning how to learn, because in high school sometimes you can get by being on autopilot, kind of breezing through exams, or maybe not taking things as seriously. But once university hits, that's where you have to really find and figure out ways to excel in your studies, and those are resources any student can use. So um, with regards to working with one specific type of person, or who has a learning disability, I think Mike was right about that. Like, different people have approached us about different things. That I remember I received this one call from a grandmother of someone who was concerned that her granddaughter had some sort of learning disability, but obviously you can't diagnose anything over the phone, and we aren't the ones to diagnose that either. So it's always, it could be something different, but we've tried to target our resources that can help any student regardless of what they're going through, and I think that's really important, because those are things that, like I just said, any student can make use of.
It's this push for universal accessibility.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, Sarah, you telling me your story has really opened up my mind to a lot of things. Like the fact that you had to move from your country to a whole other country is, to me, still like, whoa, like that's impactful, because it shows the extent that we're willing to go to honor our learning types. But what Open Doors is trying to say is that far too many families, whether they're in Canada or in Egypt or anywhere in the world, they have to feel like they have to go to that extent, whether you like it or not. And we wanted to have this push to make sure that classrooms can, be a place for everyone to learn, not necessarily to constantly have them separated, but like let educators know that it's like, we're not telling you how to do your job. What we are telling you is that there are a lot of cool tools that you could use for these students that might be having a hard time. And you don't have to do any necessarily, a little extra work, but I mean, not to the extent where you have to do their whole papers for them or whatever. That's never happened to me, or I don't know any other kid that has happened to, but that's just what we're trying to do and say, is that like, we want to make sure there's this universal approach, this universal accessibility to these resources, where, like, let's just say a kid is waiting 3 years in a line to get tested, or they're asked to drop 3K for a test, and not a lot of people can do that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not discounting the fact that students, can still make use of specialized education for their specific needs. It's not discounting that at all, but there are certain, I guess, techniques that all students of all learning types can kind of test out and see if it works best for them. So that's all what we try to promote, and that's we think that's really important as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's basically what I went through as well. But I think I asked you guys the questions a bit wrong, because for me personally, like in Egypt, not a lot of people are aware of what dyslexia is, and that's kind of why I'm trying to raise more awareness about it. So I was kind of trying to ask you, like, what is the most common learning difficulty? But I know in Canada, it's a bit more known that there is such a thing as a learning difficulty, whereas in Egypt, it's not really that known, because in our culture, and I think, Mahtab, you can kind of relate to me here, it's very difficult for a traditional Egyptian family to be accepting of the fact that their child has a learning difficulty. And this is kind of like the society that we live in, which is why I was really lucky to leave the country and kind of be exposed to an environment where, having a learning difficulty is normal. And they gave me like resources on how to kind of deal with it and be better at it. And you guys have the orthingham, right? Yeah, so I have the Nessie, and what I understood is that the Nessie actually comes from that. So it's very similar. Like, we're kind of using the same resources, just a bit differently.
Yeah, yeah, and to that point, you're right. Sorry, Mike. I was just gonna say, like, for a culture that's not aware of it, like if you don't even have a word for dyslexia, how are you how do you even describe it, right? And that's kind of I think like you said, for different cultures who might not be as aware of it, or it might be slightly more stigmatized. That's a real challenge, because if you don't have anything to really describe it, or it's not really established in that culture, it can be very difficult to navigate those conversations. And I was actually going to ask you as well, what some of the things are that you've done to explain this in the context of your culture, and try to raise awareness. I was kind of curious to hear that from your side as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a few schools here that have a a learning difficulty department, but they're not really aware of how to kind of deal with dyslexia. So me personally, what I do is I try to educate them on what I went through. So I'm always speaking in terms of my experience. So I just tell people what I've been through, what I've used as resources, and how it's helped. And definitely with younger children, whoever reaches out to me, I also share with them all this information. I mean, I'm not specialized or like licensed to teach anyone or to diagnose anyone, but I do have so much experience in this area, and I have so many like information and resources that I always share with others. So mostly parents do contact me, but there have been a few cases where I've spoken to teachers at schools or people who are like managing the learning difficulty departments, whether it's in a center or in a school. So I kind of share my experience with them.
Interesting, yeah, because that's something that we're trying to also do a little more of, is try to reach out to different communities who may not be as aware of this, and try to raise awareness on that as well. So that's really great that you're doing that, and kind of drawing on your own experience so that other people can understand what you've been through and how you've excelled. So that's great.
And to see a person that's open about it, right, and willing to be transparent about it, is something that like kids need to see too, or like at least educators, to show that like there's nothing wrong here, you know what I mean? Like, it just, you got to just tailor things better to people's needs or whatever, right? And that's the work we're kind of in.
I mean, you guys, you're doing a great job. I know COVID kind of paused everything, but you guys are doing so great, and I really hope you continue. And I mean, is there anything you kind of like to share with all our viewers, just kind of, make them feel a bit motivated or inspired?
Mahtab's got some good quotes, so.
No, I was going to say, Mike is the ultimate inspirer, I guess. I don't know if that's the word. He can get someone fired up pretty quick. So, but I'll just before he says anything, I'll just say that first of all, thank you to you for organizing this. The work you're doing is great, and to the viewers, I would say, whoever it is, whether it's us, yourself, or any other organization that's kind of working with this cause, is to make sure you continue to support them, advocate for anyone you might know who has a learning disability, and just it's kind of related to our motto, but keep an open mind, and just continue to learn as much as you can about how you can support others and their education. I think that's the most important. Mike?
Yeah, never be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Being your best advocate is crucial on this, and not being afraid to listen, right, to these difficult points of views that people might have, right? Like, whether it might be about yourself, or whether it might be about your actions, about yourself, or about the environment you fit into, right? Is that the one thing that disables you is not yourself, it's the environment that does, right? So that's why I really want to thank Sarah for having us on with like the dyslexia community worldwide. It just, like we said in the beginning, it makes the world smaller, our community smaller, like the world smaller for us, knowing that there are other people in different places that we never would have thought of would be advocating for this, that are, and we can't be thankful enough that we're not the only ones doing this, because this is something that needs to needs to be cleared out. This is something that a lot of people are looking for. So everyone's learning type is honored. So all I have to say is keep your minds open, keep your doors open, and always keep learning.
Sure. Well, thank you guys so much. I mean, everything you've shared today is very inspiring and motivational, and I'm so glad that we've had this opportunity to talk to each other and just keep doing what you're doing. I know we're in two completely different parts of the world, but like you guys are doing such a great job, so just keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Bye.